So we're going to be factoring out the greatest common factor of polynomials, and I have three examples here of the type of problem that you're likely to see. Here, let's change this to a minus. So right here we have two numbers. It's very similar to the previous problems, except that now we're performing an operation between these two terms. So I'm going to look for the greatest common factor between the 2 and the 8 and the x's. So now let's look at, now you don't have to break them down every single time, but it's helpful. So like right here we have 8, which is 2 times 4, and then we can continue breaking down the 4. This is 2 times 2. And now right here we have 2 x's, and right here we have 3 x's. So I'm just going to put it as like x squared, and then we can continue breaking it down into x and x. So now if we look at these two sides, the 2 is in common with one of the 2's, and then let me see, 2 of the x's are in common with the other 2 x's. Now whatever it's left, you have to leave inside of a parenthesis. So whatever I have in red is going to be left inside of a parenthesis. So I can factor out a 2 and an x squared. So I'm going to write that down. We factored out a 2 and an x squared. So let's see. Well, right here we have 2x and x, but they've all gone away. So there's something that remains. So we can't just not include something here. So that one thing, it's actually the 1. So you put a 1 over here, because you can divide the 2x squared by 1 and get a whole number, or multiply 1 by 2x squared and get a whole number. So anyways, so now we're going to write down inside what's left. Right here, what was left was a 1. Now I write the operation sign in the middle, and then I'm going to write what was left. So it's 2 times 2, which is 4, times x. So that's going to be 4x. Now you can, factoring is like the opposite of multiplication, so you can distribute to check yourself. So let's see, it's 2x squared times 1. So 2x squared times 1 is 2x squared. So what I'm doing is distributing here to try to check. So I also have 2x squared times 4x, so that's going to be positive 8x to the third power. So we got what we originally started from, so that means that this is factored correctly. Alright. Now let's look at this problem here. We have to look at every single term and then figure out what's the greatest common factor. Now, the greatest common factor will always be a factor of, if you have a factor, of one of the lower numbers. So right here we have a 3, we have 3 times 7 is 21, and we have 3 times 4 is 12. So all of them have a 3 in common. So that's the greatest common factor of those. So that's going to be a 3. Now we have 2 x's here, x and x. We have a y. We have 1x. We have 2 y's. So I'm going to y, y. We have a x, and we have a y. So what they have in common is an x here, and they all have a y. And then anything else gets left inside of parentheses. So I'm going to write that x, that 7, that y, and that 4. So the other thing they had in common was an x and a y. But everything else gets thrown inside of the parentheses. And we also have to include our operations. So we got plus 7y, and I'm looking at the numbers labeled in red or highlighted red, and then minus 4xy, and then we're done, and that's it. So if you distributed this, you should get what you started with. Now right here I'm bringing another problem where you have two factors that are in common. If we broke this down, we have an x and an x, and then over here we have just a 5, and then we have an x plus 3, and then right here we have an x plus 3. So what they have in common is an x plus 3. So I'm going to bring that outside. So I have x plus 3, and I'm going to keep it together. But what gets left inside, well, we got rid of this x plus 3, but we still have an x squared left. So like x times x is x squared. So I'm going to put that inside of parentheses. And we also have a operation, sign of addition. And then we also have a number here. So that's a 5. So I factor this as much as I can, and we can always check by yes, we can distribute. So I'm not going to FOIL this. I'm just going to distribute it out. So x plus 3 times x squared gives you the same thing you started with right here. And then x plus 3 times 5, that's what you have over here. So this has been factored completely. And that is your answer.